Oral questions. Chef de l'Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we talk about the cost of living, one element comes up time and time again: the price of gas. And for good reason, because it's been higher than average ever since July, when the Premier and his government allowed producers to pass on the cost of the clean fuel regulations to consumers. New Brunswickers have been expressing their outrage at this decision for 4 months now, and they've been paying more all summer. Instead of listening, the Premier launched an advertising campaign with full-page ads in the newspapers, on radio, online, telling New Brunswickers that they had to bear these costs. Well, New Brunswickers and our members have been calling on the government to reverse their decision and take the 4, 5, 6, 7 cents off the price of gas and off of consumers. 2 nights ago, it seems like the Premier changed his tune. So I'm asking, why now, Mr. Premier? What has changed for you and your mood today?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, this little discussion on gas prices, and we talked about regulated pricing throughout Atlantic Canada, and we know that our prices are very similar, if not a little lower than Nova Scotia's. We also know that they all raised their price at the same time through their process of an EUB, the same as ours. You know, we question too why ours was started at 7, but now they've revised it down to 4.5. And they've also, Nova Scotia, you know, they're at 4. So, Mr. Speaker, I think the opportunity there exists is how do we get the alignment in Atlantic Canada with looking at regulated pricing? And is regulated pricing the best avenue for all of Atlantic Canada in any case? But, Mr. Speaker, I don't think we should lose sight that the Leader of the Opposition has today reinforced her support for the carbon tax. She's reinforced. So we're not talking 3 cents or 4 cents, Mr. Speaker. We're talking 14, 15, 16 on a program that we can't even justify what value it is, Mr. Speaker, because the only value that it is causing every citizen in this province more to do anything, to move, to buy groceries, to do anything, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Chef de l'Opposition.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. I'd like to cite some things the Premier has said in looking at what's happening with gas prices in New Brunswick. He said he had no understanding what the number should be, but the whole reason for the EUB is to protect consumer pricing and that they should be on top of it. Well, we would suggest that he should be on top of it. But for the past 4 months, while New Brunswickers have been asking to take this price off, something that is within the Premier's power to do, he was distracted by leadership challenges, crises within his caucus, and wasn't paying attention to the burden New Brunswickers were bearing of his decision. If he cares so much about the price of gas for New Brunswickers, he has in his power the ability to reduce it today. Will you remove the clean fuel regulations from consumers, Mr. Premier?
Minister of Justice.
I've been quietly listening to this energy talk and fuel prices. So, without the blessings of anyone, I just stood up and I think I'm going to answer this. What is going on in fuel prices is entirely driven by the federal government, and everybody knows it. The 4.5 cents is a result of the province being forced to react to the overwhelming pressure of the federal government. The federal government has put on a carbon tax which is 14.5 cents a litre on top of the 4.5. That's 19 cents a litre. If you want to help anybody, phone Trudeau and tell him to get rid of 19 cents a litre that his ridiculous policy are putting on. You hurt the poor.
Thank you, Minister. The Chef de l'Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know there's some confusion about the difference between the carbon tax and the clean fuel regulation. The clean fuel regulation was designed to be borne by producers and refineries. This government chose to make a special loophole to bypass that so that New Brunswickers would pay instead of refineries. And we think that's a poor decision, and New Brunswickers think that's a poor decision. There's the opportunity to change the loophole and to change how we pay for gas today. If the Premier wants to go and lobby Ottawa, why isn't he doing that? Do it now. If he needs my help, then maybe we should change places. But what we want to see is relief for New Brunswickers today. They've been paying too much all summer. This doesn't go into effect to refineries until next year. Will you remove the 8 cents that you're causing to the price of gas in New Brunswick today that's within your power to do?
Thank you.
The Honourable Premier.
Speaker, you know, the Liberal math comes out again. Mr. Speaker, so first of all, the province and the people in the province are paying more for fuel than they have been doing for some time, ever since the carbon tax came into play, Mr. Speaker, and then with the clean fuel standards added onto that. But what the Leader of the Opposition seems to be avoiding is that Nova Scotia has the same thing, an increase because of the clean fuel standards. So does PEI, so does Newfoundland, as a regulated price market. And that seems to escape the Leader of the Opposition. The fact that the same thing happened in the other 3 regulated provinces. And the reason is, Mr. Speaker, because their utilities board looked at it as well and said we have to do something for the retail association and for the people that are selling at the far end. So, Mr. Speaker, as my colleague just said, the real problem is in Ottawa, and if the real changes need to be made, it needs to be made in the policies in Ottawa, and that's where the Leader of the Opposition needs to focus. So, Mr. Speaker, we are focused on the problem and the root cause, and it's in Ottawa, and the Leader of the Opposition should get in the same focus mode, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Premier continues to blame and point to other places, and his focus seems to be an obsession with Ottawa. We're focused on New Brunswickers, and the Premier is shirking his responsibility to support them. Other provinces did, and their EUBs did, do differently than we did and spread the cost between consumers and others. We pushed the entire cost onto consumers, and that could be changed, and the Premier's interview from last night suggests that he's open to changing it. So will you change the clean fuel regulation standards to provide relief to New Brunswickers immediately?
The Honourable Premier.
If I was in the Leader of the Opposition shoes, I would want to divorce my comments from Ottawa too. I'd want to move as far away from Trudeau as I possibly could. I'd want to move as far away as I possibly could from flawed policy that's impacting New Brunswickers right across our entire province. I wouldn't want to talk about them a little bit, but unfortunately she's tied at the hip with a group in Ottawa that has policies that is putting our province behind, Mr. Speaker, in affordability. So let's talk about EUB. And if the Leader of the Opposition actually knew how it worked, Mr. Speaker, the EUB said, we're not sure what this impact's going to be. The EUB said, we'll start at 7 cents. The Utilities Board in Nova Scotia said, we're not sure either, but we're going to start at 4 cents. And what the EUB did here, well, if Nova Scotia's at 4 cents, maybe we should be closer to 4 cents. So, Mr. Speaker, they're all kind of wondering what the impact's going to be. But the thing they're not confused about is it all started in Ottawa with a flawed policy from the federal government.
Chef de l'Opposition.
I think it's really unfortunate that the EUB has put something in place when they are really not sure what the impacts will be, and the impacts haven't been felt by the refineries yet. But it's because of legislation that this government passed that was supposed to allow industry to make a case for why they might need some support. We skipped over that entirely and just let them pass the costs on entirely to consumers, thanks to this government's legislation, and they refuse to accept responsibility for that. I want to go to a different point, because we see that the government's grades from the C.D. Howe Institute on accountability, something lacking in this House, has been sliding lately. They cite that it was in large part because budgets and estimates are coming later and later, so that doesn't give the public or MLAs the chance to do their jobs and get informed. Bien, nous sommes d'accord avec ça. On veut du budgeting qui est timely and it allows for public analysis. I'm hoping the Premier can tell us, when can we expect the budget in 2024? Will they strive for better accountability grades and deliver it like C.D. Howe recommends in February or even January?
Minister of Finance and Treasury.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you very much to the Leader of the Opposition for the question. You know what? The C.D. Howe organization, the Institute, recognizes that New Brunswick is a leader in transparency, is a leader and consistent high performer when it comes to government finances. Yes, we've gone from, I think it was a B+ to a B, but you know what? There's 2 provinces ahead of us. Alberta is at an A+, Saskatchewan's at an A-, and then we're tied with PEI at B. So we're tied for 3rd place, and out of 10, I would take that pretty good, you know? We're a small province. We're doing the best we can, and It's important to note that our government processes haven't changed. They've stayed the same, and we are transparent, and we are looking out for New Brunswickers, and they can see exactly where their money's going, exactly what's happening with the finances of New Brunswick.
Hear, hear. Leader of the Official Opposition.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. What's important here is democracy and the opportunity to put forward a budget that the public in this House gets to scrutinize and debate before it's in place. And when the budget comes out in March and it comes into effect in April, that leaves no time for the public to understand or express how they feel, or for this House to do its job. And this year and the year before that, it was March, late in March, that the budget came out. Their grades have been sliding because previously they were putting the budget out in February. I know it's not a sexy topic, but it's really important to good governance that we have a chance to look at budgets and debate them. So I'll ask again, can the government commit to when the budget will come out in 2024?
Minister of Finance and Treasury.
Yeah, the budget will come out, I think it's March 21st, thereabouts. The capital budget's scheduled to come out on November the 28th, so we'll do that first, and then we'll get to the ordinary budget as well. But I find it rather odd that this is coming from a member of a former government who was, she was a staff member of the Brian Gallant government, who surprised us with a wonderful qualified audit during their time here.
Oh, yeah. Talk about accuracy.
The Auditor General qualified their numbers. So I don't know. It's we do as much as we can to make it sexy, but I guess it's not. Anyway, we are doing well with our reports from CD Howe. We do well with our rankings from the banks as well. New Brunswick is in fine shape. Absolutely.